let the DJs cook, that's right. You know they coming through and hitting heavy. It's time to talk some Dynasty and talk some Debbie. My guys is never short. Time to sit down to let the DJs cook. Ow!
All right, baby. How we doing? We are Dynasty Degens, and we got some new Degens actually for you today. Dane was called into work. So he works on a day that we have a podcast, and I'm not happy with him, his work, or anything of the sort. But I got my buddy to fill in. I'm really happy about him. He's another D-Gen. This is Dustin at D-Unit 13. Dustin, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? Thanks for shooting me a text. I'm always happy to hop on and talk some football with you.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, I actually had two guys on tonight. Not that you're a second choice by any means, but both guys jumped off on me last minute. I know Sam was going to come on, but he's got a storm going, and his internet's worse than my internet right now, so that's fine. I mean, I don't need any bad internets to collide with my bad internet and just have this totally fold on us, right?
I think every time we've done a pod, your internet has been bad, so...
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, the thing about – so Boston has a monopoly on internet, right? So you have to get Comcast or – is it Comcast or Xfinity? Yeah, Verizon, whatever it is. Yeah, so there's two of them, and they both suck where I live. You know, like it doesn't matter. I switched to one, and then I went back to the other, and then I went back to the other one again because I was like, fucking doesn't matter what I do at this point. You know, like I can – so, yeah.
Take the best deal at that point.
I do, because I'm like, well, I was spending $300 on the internet, and I was like, I could spend 60 and it's still going to be the same. So, whatever.
Absolutely insane.
But today we are talking Dynasty Survivor. So we're going to go over players. It's been rookie talk, rookie everywhere. We're talking about rookies on every pod that we're doing currently. So I think it's going to be a fun thing to assess, go over guys that fell into great situations or had their situations improve dramatically, and then we can go over the veterans that you want to buy in and everybody that pretty much jumped up in value that is not talked about, because every podcast that I jump into is a rookie podcast or
rookies
startup or whatever it is that you're doing right now. So I think this is a great time to go and buy veterans, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think everyone's doing rookies because there's rookie drafts happening. But part of rookie drafts is trading for veterans. You know, I was able, not that he was a veteran, but last year was able to trade for Jahmyr Gibbs with my rookie picks because I liked him over the rookies that are available. So not a veteran, but a known commodity is really what we're talking about. Everybody wants to talk about these like hot new names, but there's known commodities, whether that's veterans, 2-3 year guys who you know what they are and you can get those down. That's part of rookie drafts as well. And that's really what makes drafts fun. If there's no trading, rookie draft's kind of boring, honestly.
Yeah, if you open a rookie draft and everyone has their same picks, it's a big red flag. I think that's what I've always said. Like, if you're going into a league and you're like, okay, let me see your picks. A lot of guys send me boards, then everyone has their own picks. And I'm like, get out of this league, dude. Like, you shouldn't be in this league. Get as far away from these people as possible. They're not the ones to be in dynasty leagues with.
Yeah.
They're playing redraft,
And if you're in a dynasty league and you haven't checked your message boards, or you're trying to get in your dynasty leagues. I have a manager right now that messaged me last week and then hasn't responded since. I'm like, dude, we're trying to work out a big trade at that, and he hasn't responded. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, I know people have lives, man. People have stuff going on, but dude, this is the peak time to be active. Like, I get that you have a job, you have family and stuff, but being active in a dynasty league is really kind of your responsibility. Yeah. And you can say that you're busy, but everyone goes poop, dude. You know what I mean? Like, everyone has a moment to check their phone. I guarantee this is the future, brother. Like, everyone has their phone glued to their hand right now. Like, don't tell me that you didn't see my messages or don't have the app notifications on. Just don't be in a dynasty league if you're not going to be active. And that's kind of how it goes, Let's just kick it off, though. So, man, have you bought any veterans since the rookie draft? Have you been trading any picks for rookies or I'm sorry, for vice versa? So rookies for any vets right now? And
so
drop them in.
Currently I'm only in one dynasty league right now. And it is a wonky where we can play 3 quarterbacks. It's 2 quarterbacks in the superflex league. And the trade I am trying to make right now is I'm trying to trade away Patrick Mahomes because I have Matthew Stafford, I have JJ McCarthy and Drake May, and I have the 106. I'm trying to get a 102, 103 pick, and I'm looking to get a David Njoku and a Christian McCaffrey and a Jackson Smith and Jigba and the 103 for Patrick Mahomes. So I'm okay buying David Njoku and Christian McCaffrey. It's also a tight end premium with 2 tight end slots, so I need some tight end help. I don't really need Christian McCaffrey, but I'm not going to not take McCaffrey. Like, I'm okay buying him as a veteran.
Yeah, I like that deal. I like the tear off from Mahomes, and I think we are looking at Mahomes' floor right now.
Yeah,
and that's okay to sell on a floor, and it's fine if you are looking at guys that they're fleeing assets. I mean, when it comes down to it, Mahomes is never going to net you what he netted you 2 years ago, and that's the reality of it. And he could have a monster year this year. He's still not going to net you what was his past value, and that's fine. So you're looking at, you said the 103, JSN, CMC, and what was the other?
David Njoku.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. 103 is what you think.
I mean, I'm assuming it's going to go Cam Ward. I'm sure it's going to go Cam Ward, Ashton Genty in this draft, just because it is so quarterback heavy. Because, like I said, you can start 3. So I'm looking at Travis Hunter. I might even try to trade back from 103, move to 104. There's a couple teams. The team I'm trading with has no quarterbacks. They literally have Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, Kenny Pickett, Bailey Zappi. That's it. And you have to start 2, and there's a super flex.
Yeah.
So
it's start 2 and super flex.
Yeah.
So ideally, you'd be starting 3 quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can start 3. That's why Mahomes commands such a high value. I think last year I turned down Burrow and the 109 and I think another quarterback for Mahomes. I was like, no, I'll just keep Mahomes at this point. I mean, I've been basically shopping him for 2 years for 3 first-round picks.
I mean, I would probably take Burrow for Mahomes right now, and I don't know if that's spicy or what, but I think that you're looking at somebody that could extend your production window by a couple of years attached to an elite offense that's already locked up for the next 3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he'd offered me Burrow, and it was just it just wasn't the right value at the time, and I was like, I'll wait. And
let's touch on this trade that just happened yesterday. So we're talking about Pickens over to Dallas. What moves you in that trade in general? Obviously we are looking at Pickens, DK, Dak Prescott already is in a juicy situation based off of just having CeeDee Lamb, but adding Pickens to that and him being so undervalued are you buying Dak Prescott currently?
I'm buying Dak Prescott. Obviously the hopes he's healthy. I posted an article that I wrote over at the Fantasy Advice Network, and I got a lot of flack on Reddit because I basically said I don't love it for CD. Whatever you were projecting for CeeDee Lamb for this year, you basically took off 20 targets, is what most people are saying. Now, some people had him projected for 180 targets, so they're putting him at the 160. I only had him projected for 150 and 160, so I have him down towards the 120, 130 range right now. And that may seem really low, but just looked at, his first 2 years when they had Amari Cooper, what CeeDee Lamb was, and then also when they got rid of Amari Cooper and they jumped from those 120, 130 targets to the 150, then 180, then 150. Yes, Dak comes in. Yes, Pickens draws away the double coverage, so it might be a higher quality of target. I still think CeeDee Lamb's good, but I think CeeDee Lamb goes from being in contention as the wide receiver 1 in that top 5 range. I think he's now in that 8-9 wide receiver 8-9-10 range for me. So it's not a huge drop off, but if you're drafting him as wide receiver 3, which is where his ADP is right now, I just don't think he returns that value. I think he's going to be a few spots lower. I think it's a lateral move for George Pickens. I think he's going to get 110, 120 targets regardless. If CeeDee's going to get 120, Pickens will get 100, 105. If, CeeDee gets 130, Pickens will level up to 110. It's kind of a lateral move. I think it really stinks for DK Metcalf because he was already on the team. Yes, he's going to get more targets, but we're still talking about, Mason Rudolph targets on a run for his team.
I think people are going to realize that Pittsburgh already had DK Metcalf and Pickens. I think that you're talking about two guys that have similar skill sets, swapping positions and swapping situations when it comes down to it. You know, like he's going to finally have a quarterback that is going to target him and be able to actually be efficient with those targets. And you're looking at DK, and even if he gets Rodgers, what are we talking about here? You know, like realistically, we're going to be looking at a DK repeat season of last year, which was not incredible or not impressive by any means.
Yeah, I mean, even DK's best year was 2020, where he had 120. He had 10 touchdowns. He had 12 the next year. But last year, he had 108 targets, 5 touchdowns. I'm looking at his 2023 numbers, probably that hit 119 targets, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think that's what we was going to get with Pittsburgh, regardless of if Pickens was there or not. I don't think he may get 125, 130 targets, but I don't think his touchdowns are going to go up a ton. I don't think his yardage is going to go up a ton, because you're just getting lower quality targets. So I had him around that. He was wide receiver 21 in 2023. I think that's where I had him, you know, that low end wide receiver 2, you know, mid-range wide receiver 2 this year, regardless of Pickens. I don't think it hurts him a ton or helps him a ton. I think it's just kind of a lateral move for Pickens and for DK. Some people love DK. I happen to love having DK on my team. He's got a high floor and a, you know, soft ceiling, so it's okay. I'm not looking for him to be boom bust. He's my consistent wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. I'm real happy with him. If you want DK Metcalf to be your wide receiver 1, I think you're asking for trouble to begin with.
Yeah, you're in trouble in general, because he's Kenny Golladay to me. You know, like he's in that realm of he's gonna hit and he's gonna run 7 or 8 fly routes a game, and he's just going to try to beat you off the line. If he doesn't beat you off the line, he's going to use those big muscles to try to muscle you out of the way. But he's never going to get that elite separation that somebody that can actually run routes do. So he's never going to be your one. I think they're asking a lot of DK being in this offense. It leads me to this question that Jamie just asked. Do you think Roman Wilson can be fantasy relevant this year? I think he can be, because DK is essentially, if this offense stands the way it is, we're talking about DK running the fly route and Roman Wilson working in the middle of the field with, I think the big winner of this is going to be Freiermuth. Personally, I think he's going to get most of the inside targets, and if he's dealing with Rodgers, he's going to deal with that mid tier of I guess the dump, the little 7-8 yard passes that he loves to throw. So Freiermuth is a guy that I'm buying in this offense.
Oh yeah,
personally, like all day, because he's not worth anything right now. Like, we're talking about a guy that I got in the 11th round of a startup, and that's a hyper tight end premium, a 2-point tight end premium league. So nobody even wants Freiermuth in a two-point tight end premium league. I think that he's the guy you want over, you know, Roman Wilson personally.
Yeah. It's funny because I wrote a Dynasty Deep Stash article literally like 2 days before the trade, and I put a roster clogger, and I had Roman Wilson as a roster clogger that you should just be done with. And everyone's like, well, now the DK's, I'm like, I don't think matters that Pickens is gone. I agree with you. I'm all in on Pat Freiermuth. He was tight end 9 last year. I get he had 7 touchdowns, and that was a big part of it, but he also had 78 targets, which we're looking at that 80 target range. I think if you get Freiermuth, and I think he's being drafted as like tight end 16 or 20, like he's super far down. They're like, I'll scoop him up, you know, late and, you know, get him after everybody else has their first tight end, and I'll scoop him up, and people are like, oh man, I can't believe he's still there. I don't love Roman Wilson. My issue is, like, he's a slot guy. I worry that that's going to be more Calvin Austin. They signed Robert Woods. They have, you know, Ben Skoranek. I just don't know if Roman Wilson, like, can be an every down player. He seems more like a gimmicky guy. It's wide open there, so anybody could step up because, right, it's DK Metcalf, and then who's going to be? Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Ben Skoranek, Robert Woods. Nobody knows. I just don't love Roman Wilson as I think he's a great player. I just don't know if he's a great, like, fantasy asset where you're like, oh, I feel comfortable starting him in my flex every week.
Yeah, I think the only players that I'm going to feel comfortable starting week to week on this team in general is going to be DK, Freiermuth, and Caleb Johnson, and that's about the extent of it, you know, currently. Warren could have some flex.
Yeah, Caleb Johnson, Warren is going to be the weird, you know, muddle of an offense, and maybe it's like the Zach Moss, Chase Brown last year where one of them gets hurt and the other one has a ton of value. I also saw Jamie said he asked about my league where he would target Jackson Dart in that start 2 with the Superflex. I'm targeting Jackson Dart in that one in like a late first, early second pick. I don't think people are super high on him. I will draft him if I can get the 201. It's a 10-team league, or the 110. I have the 106 right now, so if I can trade back and I could get Jackson Dart and stash him in my taxi squad and then roll into next season, theoretically with McCarthy, Drake May, Jackson Dart, and then maybe another year of Stafford, I'd be super happy.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson Dart, to me, where he's going, it's a tough tap, personally. I got him in a 205 in a league, Superflex league, which was like easy,
I definitely think most Superflex, he should be like a mid to late second round pick, but in mine where I have to, you can start 3, I think he goes a little higher.
Yeah, I think you have to take him at the 112, 201, that turn right there. Ultimately, he's going to go like where that muddleness of Ibuka, Caleb Johnson, and RJ Harvey go. Like that's where he's going to be in that range. And then you're looking at extreme value one way or the other because it pushes down the guys like Burden and like these guys that you think should be in the late first range. So honestly, like the late first, I know we're getting in the rookie talk again, but like the late first, early second is crazy chalky this year to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so for reference for that league where I have to start 2 quarterbacks and there's a super flex, Michael Penix went at 201. And when Caleb Williams at 101, Daniels went at 3, May at 4, McCarthy at 5, Nix at 7, and then Penix was at 201. That's where I see Jack starts like someone is going to start eventually. Maybe end of this year, probably next year. That's where he's going to go. So,
yeah, I like that move. Now that we're talking about quarterbacks, though, who's some buys? Like I'm buying Stafford with like minimal effort right now, just because everyone wants him off the roster. He's usually a quarterback 3 on a lot of rosters right now. I know that you said you have Stafford in one of your leagues. I think the addition of Devontae and obviously just like the way that they're building that offense, it's just going to breed a monster Stafford year as long as he stays healthy. You're going to buy Stafford right now currently, right? I think his value right now, you could probably get him for a mid-second. Is that something you would buy Stafford for?
I'm buying Stafford, right? Puka Nacua is still good. I always had questions about Puka coming in last year. He's still good. Like Stafford was still QB 19. He had 20 touchdowns in 16 games. I think he struggled a little bit with some injuries, but he had multiple games with no touchdowns. He had a bunch with 2. I think add in, Devontae Adams to Cooper Kupp, I think is a lateral move in terms of like skill level. I really like Kadante Mumfield, who they drafted in the 7th round to be that extra guy. I mean, the wide receiver 3 positions wide open there. You got Tutu Atwell, Jordan Winnington, and Quintez Cephas. But I think there's enough play pieces there. They got Tyler Higbee, who I still really like. I know people are high on Terrence Ferguson, but I like Higbee and Parkinson, so he's got the tight end weapons, which Stafford loves. So, I'm buying Stafford left and right.
Yeah, he's an easy buy. Another guy that obviously got a little boost, and we're waiting for the breakout. We're waiting for this guy to really, I guess, show us that I don't even care what he shows us. I just want him to show me that he's more than a Mac Jones, and that's Trevor Lawrence. I want to see that he is somebody that is going to step up. He just obviously got Travis Hunter. They built up the O-line a little bit. They got him some help. Is T-Law somebody that you think you would buy if the price was right? Are you completely
I was the first person on the T-Law is a bust, a year and a half ago, and everybody was like, T-Law's great. Then I wrote an article saying like he's a bust, and everybody was like, you're crazy. Then 3 months later it was like, T-Law's probably a bust. This is the year for him to show it, right? This is a make it or break it. He got paid the big money. They got him Travis Hunter. If he doesn't do it this year, I'm not sure he ever does. And I don't think he will. So I'm kind of out unless the cheap is like, it's got to be dirt cheap for me to get T-Law. He's just not someone I enjoy. I've never liked him. Even coming out of college, I said he was Derek Carr coming out of college. That's what I said. He's Derek Carr. He's okay. He's Andy Dalton. He's good, but not great. And you're just like, you're kind of stuck with him as a franchise quarterback because you're like, he's good enough, but not good enough. And you're just stuck there.
Yeah, Jacksonville wanted to take a quarterback this year. I know they did. I could just see they wanted to take a quarterback. I feel like they're on the edge of getting somebody to replace him. And I think that it's a hard thing to stomach because there's such a sucking cost like fallacy there. But I think, yeah. So if you're going to buy Trevor Lawrence, it wasn't now. Like the time isn't right anymore. You're going to buy him a month ago, right? 2 months ago. And now it's, obviously we see Travis Hunter land there, and I think the value is going to exceed the production. And we need to see him take a massive jump this year to even feel good about him being the set it, forget it starter on that team.
Yeah.
Because I saw him go down, and I saw Mac Jones produce equal numbers, and I saw Brian Thomas Jr. break out because Mac Jones was the starter. And that was just kind of the reality of it, right?
Yeah, when you're talking realistically 9 games and he had 11 touchdowns, like the year before he only had 21 touchdowns in 16 games. Like, he's not a high producer. They're not winning games. They're in a winnable, but not like also like it's a tough division because they're all just kind of mid teams. It's not like the NFC North where they're all good teams. It's like the AFC South's all just like these mid teams. It's the Jags and the Texans and the Colts. They're all like, we might be the best of the worst. I agree. If Trevor Lawrence doesn't take a step up, I think that franchise is kind of screwed because his cap hit next year is $88 million.
Yeah, it's they're locked into that too. I mean, it's $88 million, and then, but I mean, we saw teams trade off first round quarterbacks and bite the bullet. They ate up that salary. We just saw the Broncos do it, and they got Bo Nix, and they're still paying Russell Wilson what. Like the cap hit to me is almost magically non-existent unless you're the 49ers this year. I don't see a massive hit for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I just don't know if someone's willing to trade. We're at this point in the league where we have this like glut of quarterbacks because quarterbacks are playing longer. So that's why we have that's why you still have a Kirk Cousins still available who's like, hey, good quarterback. And you still have someone like Jameis Winston who's a backup because you're like, man, these guys are decent. I just don't know who's taking Trevor Lawrence, if they're going to trade him. With the rookies coming in, the rookies we just had in the past, last year was really good. This year was meh. But we just don't have a ton of landing spots for quarterbacks. So $24 million cap hit next year for Lawrence, but at $88 million if they cut him. So that ratio is whacked up. 2027 is really winning it out where they have a $35 million cap hit or a $44 million dead cap hit. So only, a $10 million difference, $9 million difference for them to cut him. I think that's where it could be. So, but you're right. It's a new coach. New GM, they just might go, well, if they get the buy-in, if they get the security from their owner that they can make that move, I think they'll make that move. I just don't know if the owner will give them that, hey, we're going to let you move on from Trevor after this year and give you 2-3 more years to prove it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough sell. And we just both said it that he's got to make a massive jump. We're talking about somebody that is going from a mid-tier quarterback. I don't know. He's like a quarterback 3 to me. Yeah. I don't even think he's producing at quarterback 2 numbers right now, but he's got to be a quarterback 1. He's got to have like I'm not even going to set it high, but he's got to produce like Bo Nix did his rookie year.
I think see him. If he throws under 30 touchdowns, I think it's not good.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see 30 touchdowns. I want to see, single digit interceptions, which he's generally been good at. To 14 in 2023. I'd like to see his rushing get back up there to the 60-ish carries and, 3-4 rushing touchdowns. That'll put him in, QB 12 range. I've always said Trevor Lawrence is in the QB 14 to 17 range, somewhere in that range. And that's just what he's been.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back to a guy that had a monster rookie year, struggled last year with offensive line problems, obviously had some health issues. He had all of his wide receivers unhealthy.
All of them.
Just an unfortunate situational year that people buy into. In Dynasty, these are the things that you can take advantage of. But we're talking about CJ Stroud, obviously, and CJ Stroud had the worst situation possible. We saw coaches changes and all these things just blew up. Slowick was gone, and it just was a down year and a dead year for the team in general after having an impressive rookie year. So they built the offense up, for him to be protected and then also to have some guys to throw to. So Are you buying CJ Stroud right now? And it might actually be pretty tough to buy CJ Stroud because these are two guys that perceived value have gone up. Perceived value in T Law, perceived value in Stroud, and then we'll put Justin Herbert in there too. All these guys probably were a lot more affordable last week than they are this week.
Yeah, literally I did a post NFL draft risers quarterback article, and my first two were Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud. I agree. Like, he had so much go wrong for him. Like, everything that went wrong for him went wrong from last year, right? Diggs goes down, Tank Dell goes down, Nico Collins was banged up, offensive line was banged up, right? New offensive coordinator, which I think was a learning curve for him right in his second year, which is normally you want that coordinator to stay for a second year so he can kind of develop. And same thing we've seen with Trevor Lawrence is like once he's got a coordinator for 2 years, maybe he can kind of develop, and now he's got a new one. I don't know if you can buy CJ Stroud. I mean, they drafted 2 receivers for him. I mean, one is basically a younger version of Nico Collins, and then one's basically a carbon copy of Tank Dell. Tank Dell's probably going to miss the season. I'd love to get CJ Stroud. I just don't know if you can get him. They brought in Christian Kirk to help out. I mean, I've always loved John Mechie, but I don't think he's going to get a shot. They still have Joe Mixon. They still have Dalton Schultz, who I think is a huge winner. Coming in post-draft, I think he's getting a ton of value. Again, Stroud had 23 touchdowns his rookie year, 20 the year after. Now his rookie only had 5 interceptions, which is what really helped him, catapult up to that QB 11, QB 18 last year. I think he has a good shot at being a top 10 guy because I think he can get to 30 touchdowns with a healthy offense in the second year of this offense. They really did bolster it, some offensive line help. I think he's a huge value. Agreed. A month ago, so much cheaper to get, and now you're going.
Yeah.
Would
you move off of Joe Burrow for CJ Stroud if you could get? I mean, maybe not possible now, but we're talking about maybe getting a. Could you get a first? Maybe no, probably not. But
probably not. I'm
you
not
could
sure.
Get a massive. I think you could get. So you wouldn't move off Burrow for Stroud after getting the 2 Cyclones and having a more beefed up offensive line. And I mean, there's things that are lined up, but you're betting on the fact that CJ Stroud's going to be more like his rookie year than his second year, right?
Yeah. If you would have told me this 6 months ago, right, I would have said, yeah, let's move Stroud. I'll move off Burrow for Stroud because there was questions about T. Higgins, right? You didn't know what that offense was going to do. Now we know what's locked in. We know T. Higgins is locked in there. Chase is sticking around, so you know that the weapons for Burrow are there. Can you trade? I think it's hard to get off Burrow just with those talented wide receivers. Yes, I like both receivers the Texans brought in, but I don't think they're T. Higgins levels. I love Tank Dell, but he's not going to be back this year, and who knows if he's going to come back healthy or what he was. I mean, that's always the issue with injuries is he come back 100%, 80%? Is 90% Tank Dell good enough to be, fantasy relevant and really elevate him? Dalton Schultz is young, but not super young. So it's, do they have to move on from him? I think he's got one more year in his contract. I would love to get CJ Stroud. I just don't know if you can right now. I just don't know if people who have him, because they won so big on him in the first year, his rookie year, I don't know if they're willing to move off him at, honestly, market value. I think everyone's overhyped him if they own him right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of those guys is T. Higgins' bloodline. One of those guys sits at the Thanksgiving table with T. Higgins, and they pass the mashed potatoes and and stuff. So who knows? I mean, I think I would do it. It would have to be a nice plus, though. And I'm all for tearing off guys when it makes sense. You're talking about 2 guys that don't rush. It feels good. Let's move it over to Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert. Who would you rather have this year, Stroud or Herbert?
Probably Herbert. That's really close. That's closer than Burrow. Again, people are going to love Justin Herbert with Lad McConkey. Bringing back Mike Williams. I wish they would have got him another receiver, to be honest with you. They just didn't. It's a run-first team, so I think if you can play that off to someone's like, oh, Justin Herbert's going to run first team, the Chargers are going to run.
They got Trey Harris. You're not counting Trey Harris in the.
I do like Trey Harris. You're right. I do like Trey Harris. I just don't know if the upside for. I think I'd rather have Stroud because when push comes to shove, in neutral or positive game strips, the Chargers want to run the ball and the Texans want to throw the ball. And I'll take that for my fantasy. So I will take CJ Stroud over Justin Herbert. I do actually like Trey Harris. I forgot about Trey Harris. I like Trey Harris quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Harbaugh, who just brought in Hampton, and we're probably going to look at the Harbaugh that we know and love of, but he's still going to have some dump off value. He's still going to, he's going to get his. He was running a lot last year too, which was fun to see. And I mean, Herbert is a buy, but I think all these quarterbacks that we have lined up aren't really attainable as buys for veterans.
No, they're not.
But the rookie fever hits, and you could probably get one of these guys that we're talking about for the 103 straight up. If somebody wants to re-roll with Cam Ward, I think that people would definitely re-roll T Law for Cam Ward and see what happens.
Oh, easily. I think you could trade. I think you could trade the 106, 107 for these guys because people are so enamored with rookies, right? You're going to be talking about, that. Let's just say the 107 puts you probably outside that first tier. So now you're talking the Judkins of the world, the Burdens, the Matthew Goldens of the world. I think people will just be enamored with them and will go after it. And they'll go, okay, I'll just take, I'll take a Brock Purdy or something, right? They'll tear down.
Well, yeah, I traded Brock Purdy for the 102 in a league, and that was just easy money to me because if we're talking about veteran buys, Brock Purdy to me is a veteran sell. And
for real, for sure.
Big time sell if we're going to go the other route and talk about somebody that is probably throwing to Ricky Pearsall and
Juwan Jennings
and Kittle. And that's a far cry from, when he had two of the best weapons in the NFL. And now we're talking about peak peak Ayuk and then also Deebo.
Yeah, and we don't know when Ayuk's coming back. That's part of it. Like if we knew Ayuk was back week 3, week 4, I could see buying Purdy and suffering through it. And I mean, Christian McCaffrey should be back and he'll catch a ton of balls. But yeah, I like Ricky Pearsall. I'm not a huge Juwan Jennings believer. I think he's really boom or bust. And I think he's more bust than he is boom. And if you're telling me it's Brandon Ayuk, sure, but we don't know when that's going to be. That could be midseason, that could be all season, that could be week 1. We just don't have a timeline on Ayuk right now. So yeah, I think Purdy's a huge sell for me right now because there's so much uncertainty there. And it just feels like, and I know everybody talks about Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, but it just feels like a Cinderella story that's just going to come crashing down at some point.
I agree. Let's move it over to running backs, but let's go to an ad first, and then we'll come right back.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest into bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
Yeah, Podfather, if you're listening right now, I want my face on an ad, man. I know that you got Bradley, you got a bunch of guys on there. Where's my face, man? Get my face on there.
I'll get there.
Yeah. But yeah, let's kick it over to running backs and let's talk about your favorite buys and veteran buys that are overlooked in general, or guys that survived. They survived the draft that were expected not to survive.
Honestly, the big survivor everyone's talking about is Chase Brown, right? I don't know if he necessarily he survived the draft because they didn't take someone. I'm not sure he actually survived because I think Zach Moss comes back, and I think if you look at the games where Zach Moss was playing, wasn't really great for Chase Brown. But
I don't even know if he is a massive survivor because Taj Brooks has stuff.
No.
He doesn't have all the stuff.
No.
But he's got enough stuff to see the field. And
No.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think we see Taj Brooks at all?
No.
All right, that's fair. Well, I think Taj Brooks is the best. I think what I'm going to share, I've shared with it in every pod in the last like 5 weeks. Taj Brooks is the best processor of this class. Taj Brooks has massive value in pass pro. I think he is massively higher up than Chase Brown when it comes to pass protection. Like, I'm talking incredibly way higher, that we might look at him as an extra offensive line guy when it comes down to it. He's like a Travion Henderson in this class when it comes to pass pro. I think that they're going to look at him and they're going to say, this guy protects Burrow when nobody else protects Burrow. And they could easily play both of these guys. They could play him. I think he'll be on the field. What his fantasy value is going to be a different story.
Yeah.
I think they might play him to protect, but I don't know if he's going to be more in a fullback role and he's going to just kind of work in the middle there. But I don't know. I mean, Chase Brown feels safe, but you're right. I feel the same way. And I can't even explain it to people, but Chase Brown feels like he's safe, like Isiah Pacheco's safe. Like he might be replaced every single year. You're like just waiting for it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, maybe. But Pacheco's another winner, right? I mean, kind of.
Again, he's not like Chase Brown. It's like, yeah, he won because they didn't take anybody, but also like, is his role secure? Like Kareem Hunt is still there in Kansas City. So like, although I've always said Kareem Hunt is hot trash, he still gets a decent role on that team, and that team elevates him to what he is. So technically he's a winner because like he survived the draft because there is no one else coming. Like there's no new blood coming in.
Well, Brashard Smith's got juice, man. Like we're talking about a guy that is a previous wide receiver for 3 years and then goes and becomes a running back. So I think Jerick McKinnon was a absolute monster in fantasy playoffs. Was that last year, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
I mean, having a pass catching guy that is primarily a pass catching guy could mean another top, not like we're not talking about a top fantasy running back based off volume, but somebody that could be a PPR monster that could limit the ceiling of Pacheco for sure.
Yeah, and Hunt, and it could just be a situation where you're just like, it's just gross all the way around. I struggle with those 6th and 7th round running backs. So I'm like, they have a skill, but they don't have a ton of skills. They have like one really good skill, and it's like, are they find a role? And the Chiefs are the team that uses guys for their one skill more than anyone else. So I think Pacheco and Chase Brown, they won because they didn't bring a high enough rookie in to compete for targets, but you're just like, hey, one slip up and they could be done. Like they're easily replaced. It's the, Rashad White of 2 years ago. It was like, man, he's so inefficient as a runner. You knew they were going to be something, and all of a sudden Bucky Irving comes on the scene and blows him out of the water. So there's room for that. To me, the biggest winner is Brian Robinson, which sounds gross, but like his job's fairly secure, right? I mean, they didn't bring anybody in, and Austin Eckler's there, but like, is Austin Eckler going to take anything else?
I mean, Croskey Merritt has these guys are all.
You love these like 7th and
like
6th and
7th and 8th, but it's like I think this class is not the okay. Everyone saw what they could get in the 4th and 5th round last year, and those were the guys like Bucky Irving and Tracy, and they're the ones that were the most productive of last year. They were the RB1 and RB2 of the class. The guys in the 2nd round and everybody else didn't produce at all. So there's certain teams that might be waiting for their guy, and they're saying we could make this guy productive late. And they are waiting on guys like we're talking about Woody Marks, who they traded up for. And then, Brashard Smith, who they waited on. And I mean, they are guys that would be outliers to hit. But there's also a shift in the NFL that I think is happening where they're waiting on running back because they don't want to spend the money at the position. And they're
Yes.
almost saying, we're going to wait, just like they waited for Pacheco. They get the Bashard Smith, and people are seeing that has worked. The Tyrone Tracy's, these guys that can be plug and plays. So do you think the NFL is changing their mentality when it comes to running backs again? Like, this is like before, and then we saw a shift and they're taking them early. The prime guys will be still taken early, but do you see these guys being productive, or do you just think that it's a hope and a dream from a fantasy perspective?
I think a lot of that is a hope and a dream, but I do think there's this weird NFL shift of we are going to have very role-specific backs. We are going to have the bruiser. We're going to have the thunder and lightning is the thing, right? You got the Montgomerys and the Gibbs, but we're also going to have the clear pass protection guy. We're going to have, the gadget play guy. We're going to have, those type of roles. We're going to have a bowling ball who's just going to be our goal line guy, who's basically like a Mike Allstott fullback, who's basically a running back. And so when you talk about these like 6th and 7th round guys, like, Croskey Merritt, like he played 7 years in college, 5 years and 6 years in college, and had one.
Yeah, Croskey Merritt was doing the
junior college.
He was with everybody. Like the whole class, the later the class, like we're talking about guys in 7, 8 year. Was it Tyler Shaw? What's his name? Shaw. I can't even.
Who's Shuck?
Shuck.
Quarterback?
It's Shuck. Tyler Shuck was in college for 7 years as well.
Yeah. Part of that's the COVID year and the transfer
it's the
portal.
COVID. But even then, you're talking about 5 years. What's the extra 3 years for? 2 years?
Yeah, a lot of it's just redshirting. It's the transferring. So let's just talk about Croskey Merritt. 4 years at Alabama State, had 2 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. Then transfers to University of New Mexico, 17 touchdowns. Transfers to Arizona, plays 1 game, has 1 touchdown. He gets hurt. That's a large outlier spike for that 1 year at University of New Mexico. Again, can he be a role? Yes, he's a smaller guy. He's 5'11", 208 pounds. I just think with this draft class, I get it. It was deep, and I get people might have been waiting, but you didn't wait that long. Like there was just people went and got their guy. When you had 20 some running backs taken. If teams really liked Croskey Merritt, they would have taken him in the 5th round with the DJ Gibbons and Ollie Gordon.
I agree.
And the Jalen was like, I think it was just one of those things. Like, yeah, maybe he's a guy. Like he might not even make the roster. He might just because there's no one else there. I just feel like Brian Robinson as a vet is someone that really has no competition. He has Eckler pushing him for carries, and targets, but other than he's got no one else. Chris Rodriguez, Demetric Felton, Jerry McNichols. There's just Michael Trashcan or Stratchcan or whatever his name is, who used to be wide receiver.
Well,
there's just no one there.
Brian Robinson fits. We were talking about Pacheco fitting this mold. Brian Robinson fits the Rachaad White mold more than anybody that I've seen in fantasy. Like he is super inefficient, and he's just getting the carries because, Eckler's cooked, and really there's nobody else behind him. Croskey Merritt has the easiest path to 1, making a roster, and 2, seeing the field.
Yeah.
Especially if Eckler could easily be a cut, I think.
Yeah.
Or at his stage of career, it's not going to be a cut per se, but it's going to be like, hey, we're going to let him go to a contender type deal, or you know what I mean? They're going to like package it so that it looks nice, but
it's basically cut him or trade him for a 7th round pick.
Eckler could be gone.
I don't love that Brian Robinson only got 187 carries as the lead back. Now he only played 14 games, but even if you give him those extra 3 games, he's barely cracks 200 carries. I want more than that, but I think just in terms of competition, he definitely survived the draft. Again, these guys who survived the draft aren't guys. There's a reason why they survived. It's because their position was in a shaky situation to begin with, right? It's not like they're locked in guys. So that's the thing. When you're talking about guys that survived the draft, they were in shaky positions anyway. It's not like we were worried about Derrick Henry surviving the draft. We're not worried about Joe Mixon surviving the draft. Like they're good, they're solid.
You're worried about the guys that aren't good most of the time, and that's really just the reality of fantasy. I think this is overlooked, but I mean Deebo on that team could easily be the stretch running back that is used primarily like in the slot role, but like he could get the little dump off catches that are normally wide running back.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Deebo could easily be second or third on that team in carries. I think it goes Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, and then it could easily go Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about buys, Deebo Samuel is an easy buy for me. I think easily. That he's somebody that could be had for, man, I mean, who would you trade for Deebo right now? If you're looking at rookie picks, you could probably find somebody that is hot on the clock for a 3rd round pick move them for Deebo, or one of these running backs we're talking about right now, like you could probably package a couple of these back end 6th, 7th round running backs that people need for their handcuffs or whatever, and go get a Deebo Samuel. I think he's easily attainable for a mid 3rd if there's somebody that loves whatever's on the clock on a mid 3rd, Taj Brooks or one of these guys that they just think fell into a nut spot,
Yeah, I completely agree. Right, everybody's gonna look at Deebo's 2024 and it's like, he was wide receiver 44, even though he played 15 games. I think he was banged up. I think he was less engaged. He obviously wanted to be with the Commanders. Him and Jaden Daniels have a relationship. They wanted to play together. I think he's engaged. Everybody's going to look at him and go, okay, he's the wide receiver 2 behind Terry McLaurin. I'm still buying him. You're right. I'll buy him for a 3rd round pick all day. And I think you're right. You can get someone who's super hot on these rookies that will trade you, you trade you Deebo Samuel for your 3rd round pick when you're on the clock. And they're like, there's a guy sitting there for him.
Yeah, rookie fever is amazing. I saw crazy trades, I have seen guys that you think would produce dramatically. I saw Rashad Bateman drop for 7th round Elijah Badger, 8th round Elijah Badger. I see these guys that are legitimate producers in the NFL getting dropped for hopes and dreams. So it happens, man. And I just, I hope my league mates aren't listening. They probably are, but I just dropped 101 fab on Rashad Bateman. So hopefully that pops in tomorrow. All right, let's talk about wide receivers a little bit. Actually, no. What about Swift, man? Is Swift a buy right now, or is Swift a massive sell?
I think Swift's a massive sell.
Yeah.
I have been all along that, right, Ben Johnson was on the lines when they cut Swift, so he maybe doesn't love Swift or is, iffy on Swift. There's so many rumors swirling that they are going to go out and get a Nick Chubb or trade for Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet, or they're going to bring in one of these guys. I just don't love Swift. I think he's a huge help. 253 carries last year is astronomical for DeAndre Swift. He's never had anywhere. I mean, 229 the year before in Philly.
What did he do with those carries? He got all the volume in the world. I know the offense
not a lot. He had
not good.
He didn't have 1,000 yards. That's for sure. I mean, he had a 3.79 yards per carry, so not great. He only had 6 touchdowns. I think, obviously, the Bears bringing in Loveland, bringing in Luther Burden. I think they're showing that they want to pass more. Obviously, it's Ben Johnson. He's going to get creative. I'm just not sure Swift fits what Ben Johnson wants to do, and I just don't think he had the ability to go replace him yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get a Kenneth Walker. Swift is done.
Yeah, he's cooked, right? And you're kind of hoping and praying that Ben Johnson holds on to a guy that he's already gotten rid of before. You're hoping that he stays with a guy. I mean, Swift probably doesn't love Ben Johnson. I mean,
no, probably not.
After them, essentially replacing him and moving him off. But I mean, I think so many things could happen with that team. Luther Burden could be used out of the backfield on that team. Like, if you're talking about Luther Burden's skill set, Ben Johnson's the perfect guy. So Ben Johnson picked him. He's worked out of the backfield. He's done all sorts of gadget stuff. Like, we're talking about possibly having Luther Burden be back there quite a bit. And then you're right. If they trade for somebody, I think you have to sell Swift right now and sell him to anybody that thinks that we're looking at the running back one of the Bears when you're right. They tapped two guys high up there and Ben Johnson handpicked these guys.
And when you look at that, right, you're hoping, right? Everybody's hoping that Ben Johnson brings the Lions offense. So you're looking for the David Montgomery and the Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, clearly DeAndre Swift is not David Montgomery. He's not the right size, not the right type of runner. He's also not the Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not a good pass. He's a good pass catcher, but he's not a good pass blocker. Roschon Johnson is. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a ton of Roschon Johnson. If they don't trade for a guy, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a ton of Roschon Johnson back there. If they're going to throw the ball a ton, him just being out there, pass blocking, but then also just getting those carries, to fake, and gets a ton of work. And Swift is kind of the backup to Roschon Johnson. I agree. If you could trade Swift right now, I'm trading him left and right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Swift is a massive sell. Yeah, I don't think I want anything to do with the Bears backfield I'm not going to buy any of the vets on that team. I'd buy a Burden. I have bought Burden a little bit.
Yeah, you buy a Doomsday, but I don't DJ Moore.
I don't even know if I want to buy a Doomsday or DJ Moore. I think these guys are see the writing on the wall. They're going to be there's too many bodies on that offense to produce at a high level for everybody. So somebody's going to get the shafts, and eventually someone's going to get traded or moved, and it's not going to be any of the guys that he just drafted. So I think DJ Moore is a prime trade target for a lot of teams that are looking around the league for a pass catcher. DJ Moore could be a sneaky buy if you really, you hope he lands right. But
and really how good is Caleb Williams, right? Is he capable? We're talking about Pickens and CeeDee Lamb earlier. Like Dak is capable of producing, a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2. I don't know if Caleb Williams can produce a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 in a single year, for fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to work on his release. He's got to work on his time of release too. If you go through his motions, he's going through his motions too slow. And now he's got to go through so many motions. Before it was really just, okay, look for, DJ Moore or Odunze and Keenan Allen was down there somewhere, but it really wasn't like he was demanding targets. Now you're going to be looking at 4 or 5 guys that are demanding targets from you. They're going to be upset. They're going to be mad. If DJ Moore isn't seeing his looks, he's going to be like, we're going to see a toxic environment, and then.
Well, and he's learning a new offense, right? We saw that with CJ Stroud. We talked about earlier, like going into year 2 when he had a new offensive coordinator, he struggled a little bit. So does Caleb struggle a little bit with a new offensive coordinator? Trevor Lawrence has struggled when he gets new offensive coordinator. So Caleb's got whole new scheme to learn too. New scheme and new people. So it could just be.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a fast transition. It's not easy like that. And just because Ben Johnson, revived the Goff situation and really blew up the Lions. I mean, Goff was already a little farther along in his development when Ben Johnson got there. And he just surrounded him with elite weapons. And that was what Goff was. He's a game manager, and he's good at game managing. Caleb hasn't shown us that he's a good game manager yet.
Nope.
What about some wide receivers that you want to buy right now? We saw Adams. We just talked about him a little bit. Devontae Adams is on the Rams, and we were looking at Stafford being a buy. Is Devontae Adams a massive buy right now as far as the veteran wide receivers go?
At the right cost. I mean, the problem is Devontae Adams had a really good season last year with Aaron Rodgers, even though he's older, and you go, well, he's going to come in and, replace Cooper Kupp. I just don't know what his value, what do you think you could trade? What is the trade value for Devontae Adams right now?
Honestly, man, I think it would be hard pressed to buy him for a second right now. I think that it would have to be a wide receiver plus a pick, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking at what wide receiver range, would you be able to get like Devontae Adams for Marvin Mims in a second?
I was thinking Khalil Shakir in a second.
Shakir in a second, Marvin
and
Mims,
I wouldn't do that. I'd rather have
Cedric
Shakir.
Tillman. You know,
these
I'd
rather
guys
have Shakir in a second, right? I think I'd rather just hold on to those and right. Shakir's going to be a solid RB2, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. I think Devontae Adams for fantasy is going to be a wide receiver 2, maybe a low end wide receiver 1. The problem is with Dynasty is you get 1 year. Like you probably only get 1 more year with Devontae Adams. So you might be able to get him. If I can get him for a third, I'm buying him all day. I will gladly take him for a third.
I don't think it's possible right now.
I don't think it's possible either.
I think that he is. Yeah, he might not even be a buy because he's not going to net you value long term.
Nope.
But he's going to be a short term guy that's going to cost you a lot of value. You know, you're going to have to trade a young wide receiver, and you're probably going to regret it in a year. You know, like it's like the guys that traded JSN for like Diggs, or you know what I mean?
Hopkins,
like rookie year, and Hopkins, anybody that was viewed as a top end guy that had a couple years left, and they fall off pretty fast.
And so you mentioned the name who's someone who I'm buying, and that is Stefon Diggs.
Yeah. Diggs is cheap. Now, Diggs is somebody that you're looking at possibly getting for a third. I think Diggs
if not a fourth, yeah.
I think Diggs is in that realm of, in that Deebo range where he's kind of viewed as a dead asset right now. And by no means is Diggs going to die in a system like McDaniels, where we're looking at him being the set it and forget it wide receiver 1. They got a little help with Kyle Williams on the side. And I think that offense is going to be a little better. And Drake May going to a second year is going to be looking at Diggs quite often because Drake May wants to make an impression on Diggs. Diggs is the vet. He wants Diggs to be happy.
Yep.
Everybody in that room wants Diggs to be happy. So they're going to hyper target him, and I think he's going to be a massive value in startups this year. I think he's a massive buy for sure.
Yeah, he's a huge buy, right? Like I said, late third. I think you can get him for a 4th round pick. I wouldn't be surprised if we see post rookie drafts when teams need to trim down their players, they drop Diggs because they just don't have roster space. Because you might have a team out there you might have a team that is rebuilding that had Diggs last year, had him in their IR spot, right? Because they could free stash him. They probably had, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks, right? Because they traded for a bunch of 3rd round picks, 2nd, 3rd round picks, are going to go to the rookie draft and be 4 guys over the roster limit. And they're going to have to make tough decisions. And Diggs is probably one of the guys that are going to go, I'll drop him. It's the Patriots. He's washed up. He's always coming off an injury. And I think you can scoop him off waivers in a month or 2. And that's what I'm saying. I think you can get him as basically free. You can get him for a 4th round pick, a 4th for next year. I would go, hey, I go right now and go, hey, I'll give you a 2026 4th. And people go, okay, cool. Because they'll take that future value. And you get him for a year. And he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver there. I mean, who's going to take targets from him? Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, Javon Baker, Matt Collins, Kyle Williams.
I think Kyle Williams will probably edge all those guys out and be a back end rookie guy. I think that we're talking about somebody that isn't going to demand targets from Diggs. There's going to be enough targets to go around for both those guys. But you're right. There's nobody's going to. I think this is why Diggs wanted money, obviously, but this situation is Diggs
wide
through
open
and through. He wants to be the guy. And I think he doesn't care about a ring at this point. I think he just wants, he just wants to revive his career.
He does. I think there's a little bit he wants to revenge on Buffalo, so that's why he went to New England. But he gets to play with Drake May. We've seen, everyone wants Drake May. Jamie said it in the chat, he wants all the Drake May as a buy. Everyone wants to get Drake May. Well, if you want Drake May so bad, you have to want one of his receivers. And probably his top receiver is Stefon Diggs. I mean, you could argue it's Hunter Henry, but it's Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is probably going to have 130, 120, 130 targets. He's probably going to put up 7 touchdowns and have, 1,000 yards. He'll be wide receiver 25, 24 in the year. And you can get him as, basically at his wide receiver 64 price that he was last year. I'm all over that. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. I think people think Cooper Kupp's a dead asset. And I will take Cooper Kupp all day because it's Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. And that's kind of
Something I wanted to talk to you about. Sold Lawrence, Coughlin in 26, late 4th for Baker Mayfield and Fannin.
Love it.
I mean, I love that. I think we're both pretty low on Lawrence, and
yeah.
I think that if you're going to get Baker, who's set it, forget it in the situation, and Baker's in a better situation, has shown that he's produced, and I think he's more stable as an asset in Dynasty right now. Yep. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about guys that were dead in the water and have taken over their respective position of QB1 on teams. And that's Baker Mayfield. That's Geno Smith. That is Sam Darnold's kind of,
maybe,
whatever. But these guys that were dead and they already drafted quarterbacks in these positions and they've come back to life. Yeah. And now there's not enough starting positions for all these quarterbacks coming in, I
mean, we saw it with Goff a couple of years ago. Like Goff gets drafted by the Rams. They go to the Super Bowl. Everybody's loving him. And then he has a couple bad years, right? He has basically mid-start his first year. Second year comes out, he's QB 12, right? 2018 is QB 6, and also he's QB 13, QB 20 for Detroit, and the Lions are like, Lions are like, we'll take him for Stafford. He goes to Detroit, he's QB 24, but he goes, he's dead, and then also he's QB 10, QB 7, QB 6. So Jared Goff was the same thing a couple years ago. I think that's what you're getting with Baker. I agree. That's what you're getting. That's what you're getting with
trade is the most fun thing to go back to every year, because we're talking about Goff, Laporta, Gibbs. Who else was on
Brian
that
Branch
trade?
was part of that. Yeah, like he had to be
Branch. That was a rebuild your roster in immediate time type of trade. And it was incredible to watch because they got a Super Bowl and they literally just got a brand new roster with top guys and top dynasty assets attached to that. And it was just a fun thing to go over. And it'll be a great trade to assess if the Lions ever get a Super Bowl, because I think that you could finally say they won that trade, but it's going to take a little time. So we talked about Diggs, we talked about Adams. Any other wide receiver that you're buying, especially on the low, that you could get?
Cooper Kupp. Wide receiver tough because I think this was a very good class for wide receiver, even though people were down. I think it was a very good, like, middling tier wide receiver. So I'm not sure there's a ton of guys that I'm loving. Right, all the Bills receivers are kind of I go back and forth with people on Josh Palmer. I think he's washed. I'm not buying Josh Palmer or Curtis Samuel, any of the wash receivers Bills got. For me, it's Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs. I think you can get them pretty cheap right now, and you'll have solid wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s on your fantasy team.
Yeah. Okay, man, Pat, how many QBs does everyone think of a superflex league? I mean, ideally you're talking about 3, but you want to get, if you can get guys value-wise, if you can get these guys back ends of a startup, I would keep tapping. Once I get to a certain point, when I'm in the 12, 13 round, I have my guys of start 10, start 12.
Yeah.
I'm getting the value. I'm tapping the quarterbacks that have fallen out of favor, or the running backs that are looked as cuffs or whatever it is. But you can, the quarterbacks that we just talked about, when we talked about Sam Darnold and Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, they were all in the 15th, 16th round of startups at one point in time. Baker was a waiver scoop up. I got him off the waiver in a couple leagues, like he was dead in the water. He was jumping on teams. He's had that one game where he started for the Rams and he came in hours before the game and was headbutting everybody and stuff. And everyone's like, well, he's showing a little value. But before that, it was Baker's dead, like he's going to be floating around and then end up being on the couch. So yeah.
And I think more so than how many you want is what type of quarterbacks you want. For me, I want a young guy, a year 2 or 3 guy. So give me a Stroud, even a Bryce Young, a Drake May, J.D. McCarthy. Some of the guys are drafted in the past 2 years. I want one of those guys. Then I want not an old vet, but a solid vet. So someone in the Dak Prescott, the Tuas, And, maybe you go Geno Smith, Jared Goff, someone who's got 2-3 years left. And then I want a rookie. I want a Cam Ward, someone who's going to start next year. So Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, someone who's going to start in the next year or two. And then ideally you want to start getting some picks, some first and second round picks, and try to get one and just repeat that every year. So every 2 years, you're basically redoing your thing. So as those guys age up, let's say you go in and you have Stroud, and let's say you get a Stroud, a Geno Smith, and a Jackson Dart. In 2 years, I'm drafting 2 more guys. Like, I'm drafting 2 more young guys and hoping one of them pans out, or maybe I'm drafting a guy each year. And that's what I'm kind of build. What I don't want is 2 vets. I don't want a Geno Smith and a Stafford, right? Because then you're just sunk next year when they're both probably done. I'm looking for someone who's younger. So if I can get a young guy, obviously, Jaden Daniels, even if Jalen Hurts is young enough, something like that. But like Josh Allen is the point where he's an old quarterback at this point. He's been around for like 7 years. Patrick Mahomes, same thing. Like, he's an older veteran now. I don't really love those. They're my quarterback 2s in my superflex. I want a young guy who has potential to be on my team for the next 5 to 7 years. I want a guy that's going to be on my team for 3 years, and I want a guy that's going to be there for 10.
Yeah, I think that plays into the dynasty theory stuff, and that's what we really concentrate on in this pod most of the time. But dynasty theory in general, you want to assess your players before you make these kind of decisions. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Dustin. You want to look at the age of your quarterbacks and decide, okay, how many years does this guy have? And it's obviously unpredictable, but you have an idea. If they're 36 years old, they might have a year left. There's a cliff that everybody falls off of eventually, and it's unfortunate, but time gets everyone. If you do have a Stafford, you have a Geno, you have these guys that could retire at any moment, and the contracts go out the window when it comes down to it because their families come first, and anything can happen, especially at that age. Kirk Cousins felt like safe guy for the next 3 or 4 years, and now he's dead asset. So anything can happen. So, but you want to save your picks. If you have guys that are aging out, hold on to your first. Don't ever sell your first if you have Geno and Stafford as your quarterbacks, because anything can happen, and you think you're going to go all in. Don't get rid of your first round picks. Don't do it. Absolutely not. Because it's just not going to end well for you when one of these guys retires or gets injured, and then you actually need a quarterback. So let's talk about tight ends, and then let's get out of here. So we look at the tight end landscape where it's almost – this is probably the best tight end landscape that we've ever had in Dynasty.
It really is. I mean, we had, 5 years ago we were looking at it's Travis Kelce or – nobody else, and there was a clear gap, and then it was like it's Kelsey, Kittle, and maybe Andrews, and then now we have 7 or 8 guys that can all realistically be the number 1 guy at the position in a year, and you have a lot of young guys. Obviously, Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta the past 2 years have been great. This was a very good tight end class, comparatively. There's a lot of young talent out there. There's not, we're not dealing with rolling out these old guys anymore that we used to.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you can almost wait and you can get any of these tight ends. I think a lot of my rosters have 3 to 4 solid tight ends right now. Yep. And it's hard to even move a tight end. But if you're going to buy one right now, who is the guy that you think is a massive buy at a good value?
Honestly, I think Zach Ertz is still a massive buy. Ben Sinnott just isn't a thing. Like, let's stop trying to make him a thing. He's not a thing. He never will be a thing. Zach Ertz is still probably, now I know Deebo cuts into his targets, but he's still probably 2nd or 3rd on that team in targets. He had 91 last year, so even if he drops 20 targets, he's still at 71, which is a pretty good number. Had 7 touchdowns. I think with Jaden Daniels, I want a piece of that offense. And him and Deebo are 2 very low price pieces, so I think that's a huge buy for me. They didn't bring anybody in, so I'm okay with that. I mean, you could talk about John Bates and Cole Turner and Ben Sinnott, but I don't think any of them are ever going to be a thing. So that's a massive buy for me right there.
Yeah, I think Jonnu Smith is definitely a guy that I want to buy if the price is right, because a lot of people kind of view him as a drop in the bucket. They don't think that he's going to consistently produce at that level. but nothing's changed on that team. They didn't
No.
add any pass catchers. They didn't get rid of anybody. It's really just like the exact same situation. Like we're looking at the health of Tua. That is probably going to benefit. And realistically, Tua, that's his skill set. Like Tua's not throwing massive bombs. He needs that guy in the middle. Waddle's shown that he's inconsistent. He trusts Jonnu fully. Jonnu is somebody that I think is going to consistently produce on this team as long as the scenario of, like, we're talking about Tua staying healthy, and even without Tua, he still had some pretty good games last year. So I think that he's a buy. Kraft is a sneaky buy right now because we're talking about Golden going over there, and a lot of people could view that as people don't really know what they're going to do with the breakdown of having the two tight ends healthy. And I think Kraft is still going to produce at a high level. And it's tough because tight end right now, nobody really needs a tight end because there's so many good tight ends right now. And it's incredible.
I agree. It's hard to move one because everyone has one, right? Because if you're in let's just say a 12-team league, Dynasty league, you've got Bowers, McBride, Laporta are all starters. That's 3, right? You're going to have Loveland and Warren are going to be 5. You still have got Kelsey and Andrews, right? Kittle. You got all these guys. And then you got guys who like Tucker Kraft. You've got, the K-Dot and believers out there. You'll still have someone who believes in Kyle Pitts and Dalton Kincaid, even though they shouldn't. And then for me, I think the biggest buy right now is TJ Hockenson.
Oh, hell yeah.
He has potential to be the number 1 tight end. He just is that good. And because he was injured last year and had a down year, I think people are discounting him. People don't know what to do with J.J. McCarthy because they didn't see him, and he's not a rookie, so they've lost track of J.J. McCarthy somehow. T.J. Hockenson could come out and put up a top 5 wide tight end position, and people go, "Oh yeah, T.J. Hawkinson's really good." Yeah, he's super good. You just have guys like that who just, Evan Ingram now in Denver. He's someone that people are looking at, and he had really good seasons. Had injured last year, but 2 good seasons in Jacksonville. People are going to be high on him. But Hawkinson's just because nothing has changed. There's no news, so no one's talking about him, and you can get him dirt cheap right now.
Yeah, and then you have to take into account for the ACL, MCL injury. Nobody's going to come back from that and be super productive that year. It's the year after that you have to watch these guys come back from, because the year after they had that full mobility. They're not playing differently because they're scared that they're going to re-injure, and that fear of re-injury, people don't talk about that enough because it does change the way that you play. It changes the way that you move, the way that you go about your thing, the way you be set off the line. Everything that you do normally is thought about more in depth, and it's tough for these guys to get over that psychologically. So I think Hawkinson's a massive buy. I think you could probably even sell Ingram for Hawkinson straight up in a couple leagues. I think you
can get Hawkinson and plus for Ingram. Because I think people are going to be super high on Ingram going to Denver and being, the Joker role for, Sean Payton. You're talking about Hawkinson played 10 games last year, 62 targets. So average 6 targets a game. We want 5 targets a game for our tight ends. That's the number I'm always looking for. And he's getting 6. I'm all over that.
Yeah, and people don't realize how fast J.J. McCarthy releases the ball. He's somebody that has a great release time, and he is that guy. He's like a hyper release, like short target, intermediate targets, boom, boom, get it out of your hand fast. Yep. That's just how he's run the offense, and that's how they're going to do it. They're going to be, a high velocity run, move the ball, no huddle offense. And I think that they're going to just really rely on Hawkinson, Addison. Obviously, JJ's going to do his thing, but these guys are going to be the quick release targets for sure.
Yeah. And everyone loves Colston Loveland, and he came on the map in 2023 when they won the national championship with JJ McCarthy throwing on the ball. That's where Colston Loveland came from. Like, JJ McCarthy made him a star, and that system really favored that tight end, and he only had 45 receptions, 4 touchdowns, but it was J.D. McCarthy targeting him that made Colston Loveland stand out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Hawkinson's an easy buy. Let's just answer a couple of these questions and then let's get moving. All right. So we're talking about thoughts on Travis Hunter. Where are you taking him in rookie drafts? Man, I mean, this is the struggle of my rookie drafts because he is aligned with – we're talking about Hampton, and then we're talking about T-Mac, and then Hunter in that range with Cam Ward mixed in the range too. I think I want T-Mac over Hunter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good. I've done that in the last 4 drafts that I've been in. I've been in that range of either Hunter or McMillan, and I've gone McMillan just because I know that Hunter has that elite ceiling and that he's going to be a massive fantasy asset when used correctly. McMillan feels safe in that range, and I think my risk tolerance, I'm going to go for the sure thing when I'm looking at a high-end top pick. Mm-hmm. I know that could bite me in the butt, but when it comes down to it, I think I'm going to go McMillan over Hunter 9 times out of 10.
I completely agree. McMillan is the wide receiver 1 on the Panthers, whereas Travis Hunter is the wide receiver 2. Now, he's probably 1B to Brian Thomas's 1A. I think I like Bryce Young a little bit better than I like Trevor Lawrence by just the smallest of margins, but I'll take the wide receiver 1 there versus the wide receiver 1B in Jacksonville because that could easily become a wide receiver 2. I'm not worried about him playing cornerback. I think he's going to play mainly offense, but I agree with you. I think it goes in a single QB, Genty. I think it's Hampton, Henderson, McMillan. If you're in a tight end premium, Loveland probably sneaks up in there, maybe Tyler Warren. So I'm looking at Travis Hunter at the 105 to 108 range, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to get him there. I think that he's probably going to be going 102, 103 in a lot of drafts. Yeah. It's just a little rich for me. I think I'm going to I'm definitely taking Genty, Hampton, and then obviously McMillan. And then that's where it gets dicey because – do you want another running back there?
I can't take Travis Hunter at 104. I just can't do it. I'd rather just trade back into that 107 range and get the last guy, and you stay in the same tier, but just move back and acquire some other assets.
And I think we're actually against the grain with this take. Yes. Personally, I think that most people are going to take Travis Hunter at the 102, 103 range. I think that this isn't a normal response, but that's really just where we're at. And that's just comes down to, I think that McMillan is going to produce similarly, if not more, and then have his situation improve or stay the same. Whereas I don't know what happens with Trevor Lawrence if he doesn't improve his game. I don't know. I think that the Panthers have a better situation than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that seems crazy to say that right now because that wasn't the case last year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The running back situation looks messy. The offense has a lot of question marks. The offensive line has a lot of question marks. I think you could say that about the Panthers, but also, I just think that we're going to see Bryce Young take a bigger step than Trevor Lawrence this year, and that's crazy.
Yeah, if I'm looking at
that a hot take?
I don't think it's a hot take. I think people expect it, but I'm looking at I want my wide receiver to get – if I'm drafting these guys to be a wide receiver 1 or be the top guy, I want them to get 110, 120 targets this year. The pathway for T-Mac, McMillan to get there is easier than it is for Travis Hunter just because of Brian Thomas Jr. Do I think 5 years down the road, can Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter be Chase and Higgins? Yes. But I also think McMillan could be Mike Evans. So, right, I don't need to be – if he's a 1B, that's good enough. But I'd rather – I think the possibility and the probability that Travis Hunter is a 2 and not a 1B is higher than him being a 1B, and it's obviously higher that he's a 2 than McMillan not being a 1.
Word.
So I'll take the higher probability of McMillan. Yeah, I'll take the higher probability of McMillan, Hampton, and Genty. That's where I'm at. When I'm at 104, I think he probably should. Most people take him there. I'll just trade back to 10. I'll trade back to 107, and take Judkins, Henderson, Loveland there or something.
Yeah, when they're that close, when it comes to value and output, it's really just about situation, and then you have to look a little deeper, and that makes sense to me. But yeah, let's sign off, man. What do you have coming up? What do you have going on? Any content that you want plugged? Anything that you're doing right now?
Yeah, you can just check out all my written stuff at the Fantasy Advice Network .net. I think it's fantasyadvice.net. I never remember the website. That's where all my stuff comes out this year. Twitter, DUnit13 is the best place to find me. Don't have a ton of shows lined up right now. Still doing my podcast at Bridge the Gap on Tuesday nights. Kind of changed it. No more football talk. It's just kind of topic talks now. So we just did one on leadership, the difference between leadership and management. We got one coming up on coaching and mentoring. We'll be doing one on joy. We're doing one on grief, and that kind of stuff coming up. So we just got some cool, fun topics. So if you're a curious person, just want to learn about a different topic, check it out. Bridge the Gap live. It's Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern.
I love that, man. I love that. I think that the fantasy space in general is very hard for a lot of guys to open up about emotions or get into that kind of conversation, because a lot of people that are in this space, there's machismo, there's, don't show emotion, don't show that kind of stuff. That kind of goes hand in hand with football, with sports. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be, you can't be in tune and understand this side of things, and then also enjoy the game and enjoy football as a whole.
Yeah. And I want to make people just better people in general. So like you might tune in and if you watch the one on Tuesday about management and leadership, you might not be in a management or leadership role now, but you might be down the road. And I'm hoping everybody walks away from every episode with one or two little tidbits of, good information they can tuck away and use down the road and whatever it might be. And just, I love having conversations about stuff outside of football. Still bringing some football people on just to talk because they're, my friends I have. But we're getting some people outside the football space to come on and talk about different things, trying to find experts and, taking topic, ideas from the fans and the listeners. And it's a 3-person conversation. It's me, the guest, and the live chat. So hope everybody tunes in and can learn something different every time.
Yeah, definitely check that out. Follow Dustin over there at DUnit13. Dynasty DGens is doing a lot of things on the upcoming weeks, everywhere, I believe. Yeah, so we have Devi DGens. The new redraft show is called Whiplash, and that is going to be dropping next week. The Rookie Profiler series is marching on, so we're going to be doing rookies with landing spots now. So we're going to still be covering some of the top rookies, but talking about the impact of where they landed and the team layouts and stuff like that. And then I'm doing player breakdowns on the Player Profiler Now channel as well. So I'll start doing that in the next coming weeks. So just a lot of stuff on the fire, and we're cooking up a lot of things, and it's hard, man. Talking about management and leadership, I need a game manager. I need somebody that is putting everything together, and I need that soon. So if you're in the chat and want to come help me out manage the Dynasty DGens, just hit me up, man. Send me a DM. My DMs are open, and I'm looking for somebody to come in here and be that game manager for me. But we appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll catch you next week. Later.